What's going on, everybody? This is Garry B. Jr. and I'm excited to tell you about this new media kit for your Freeshow usage, and it is called the lower thirds transparent templates. And I put a lot of work into these, so I want to show you what they do and how they work. And kind of how they're built, so you can kind of get an idea. So this is an example of the template here. This is the lower third scripture transparent, and it's just labeled LT scripture transparent. So if I go to edit, you can get an idea of what it is. So all the text is going to be caps in terms of the actual scripture reference itself. The scriptures, I'm sorry, and then the reference is going to be regular text. So it'll be a capitalized title type font, I guess you can call it, where the first letter is capital and everything else is going to be regular, lowercase. But the actual scriptures are going to be all uppercase. The idea is that you don't want your lower thirds or any of your slides to actually run over outside of your text box. And so all of them are set to auto size. The font size for this one is defaulting to 43. And the font size for this one is defaulting to 35. And if it's too much text in there for it, it will shrink down. So it'll shrink to fit. This is a safety precaution. All right. Now, there is a cool feature in Freeshow 1.4 that I want to show you guys after we get done. But I want to show you guys how this is made in terms of what's entailed with it and why it'll work well for you and what you can do to tweak it if you want to. So if the way that it's set up right now is designed to where it'll show up how it needs to show up. And I've made sure that everything is in its place. Basically, the positioning and all that kind of stuff is where it should be for most average HD or 4K projectors or screens or whatnot, to where it's not going to run over. Obviously, it's going to be centralized. You still even have room if you want to have a logo on the left side, I guess on the right side too, depending on how your preferences are at your ministry. Or at the top, obviously there's no interference there. But that's the lower thirds version. And I just labeled up line 1 and line 2. That does not mean that's going to show up, obviously, because this is a template, right? And then this is the reference. It automatically puts those scriptures and the reference in their place. It's not because they're labeled that way, but based on the order of the items is how it's set up. So if you mix that up, you'll have to do some finagling to make it work right, but it should work just fine with your scriptures filling into the top box, your reference filling into the bottom box. But that's not the only template we've got. So we've also got an upper third. So some ministries have an upper third. So I just called it UT script transparent. And if we go to edit that one, you'll see something similar. This one has a bit of an overlap for the reference and the lines, but they don't overlap. Okay. So in terms of, they won't run into each other, which is good. But this one, if you look at the text box, it's set to the same size, 43, and the reference, I just moved it. The reference is set to 30, so it's a little bit smaller, but it's 3 lines or up to 3 lines. And the main reason I did that, it's something that you can change if you want to. You can delete that 3rd line if you want to and make the box smaller. But the idea was to make sure that the scriptures will fit, or in this case, just scriptures. We've got one for songs as well, but all of these scripture ones are left aligned. That's what you'll notice. And then the references are right aligned. And that's something that's important to me when I'm working with these templates, and having some consistency and continuity with them is important. All right. Now for the song. So this is, I got a lower thirds category called for songs here. And same idea. So we got lower third lyrics is what it's called, transparent. If I right click on that and go to edit, you'll see something very familiar. You'll see the box at the bottom there. And this time the font size is set to a bit bigger. It's set to 78 and bigger, right? And then the alignment of it is it's set to be at the top. I think it'll be better to be centered like that. But you know what? No, I like it at the top because it does keep your top line from moving. That's the main reason why I did that. So it keeps that top line. The highest point is always going to be the same. Okay, it's not going to be jumping around. That's the main thing. And when we're talking about templates, you want something that's going to be consistent. That's the goal. And for this one, I'm going to pull it down just a bit. I don't want it to be that tall. And so we'll have it about right there. And then for the upper thirds, if we edit this, you'll see the same thing. Line 1 and line 2. Now this one, if you notice, it doesn't look like it's all caps, but down here it's in all caps. They are all set to have the text go into uppercase. So they're going to be all caps. Even if you type it in, or if your text is defaulting to be in lowercase, it's going to make it all caps, as you'll see in your preview of your templates down below. So keep that in mind as you're working with this. This is something that is designed to make your workflow simpler and consistent. All right. So it's designed for songs, in this case, lower thirds or upper thirds, and then for scriptures. And I made categories. You might want to do the same. If you got a bunch of lower third templates, you might want to make a lower thirds template or category for your scripts and for your songs. And for me, I've got my lower third scripture transparent and my upper third scripture transparent there as well. And hopefully this will be a blessing for you in your ministry to simplify. And at the very least, you can understand how to make your templates and make them however you want, or you can just download these and customize them, right? So when you get a template like this, what I would say is, let's say we're going to use this, we're going to customize the lower thirds. I would right click on it and I would just hit duplicate. And so now you got a lower third scripture transparent 2. So I would go in there and I would edit it. And so we got this lower third scripture transparent 2. So you might say, you know what? I want my box to be narrower and not as wide. So you can do that, make it narrower. And then I would just recenter it. So I would drag it back to the center and then pull the reference back over, line it up as well. And you got a narrower box for your lower thirds, right? And that's completely up to you. I don't know what the layout of your projector and all that kind of stuff is. So this is where you can customize it and make it to whatever you want. And then you would just rename it. Once you're done editing, you can right click on it and rename it to whatever you want. Okay. The cool update with this, with these templates, is if you go into 1.4 and you go to your scripture tab, right? So you're in Freeshow 1.4 version or newer, and you change your template to be your new lower thirds script or songs or whatever it is. But in this case, it's going to be the scriptures or the upper thirds. And you select split long verses. You turn that on, right? And then you can select the size you want it to be. So you might say, let's do 80. Unlock that, and you'll see that it automatically adjusts, and you'll see these letters show up next to the verses. And so the longest verse in the Bible is Esther chapter 8, verse 9. And notice here it's got an A, B, C, D, E, and an F. All right. So if I go to this verse, if I double click it, here's what you'll see. It'll show up, and it'll show at the bottom there the 9A. And I go over 9B, 9C, 9D. And I'm holding down Command on an Apple computer, and I'm using the arrow to the right, and I can go to the left to go back as well. But when you do it from the scripture drawer, the cool thing is the text size does not change. It stays consistent. And this is really helpful for those who want to have their text be the same size for every slide. So the benefit of this is that you can do that. And for your lower thirds, so this is designed to work with like OBS or something like that. So I'm gonna open up OBS real quick so you guys can get an idea of how this would work and how it would look for your ministry and your service and things like that. And I'm going to pull OBS up now. And I've got a template that I've made with a style in Freeshow. So I've got this live stream template, and this is where it'll probably suit you best, is for your live stream. So I've got this live stream template, and you notice that the box behind it is gray, or the background is gray. That means it's completely transparent. That's what this particular template of transparent, they're all transparent, so that you'll be able to see through completely. And so this is my live stream. So I go to OBS, and I'm going to turn on, I'm going to go to my properties and turn on, instead of it being the primary from Freeshow, I'm going to turn on the live stream, and you'll see a preview of it there. And I'll do OK, and I'll activate it, and you'll see this is what it looks like. All right. And so you'll see it in, that uppercase, and you'll see when I go to double click a verse, you'll see a change. And this is all through NDI, what you're seeing on OBS. So if I'm in Freeshow and I go to the next verse, you'll see it change, and that particular verse is going to stay the same size, same height. The text size is not changing and fluctuating. Even though the length of the scriptures is changing, the text size stays the same. And this is why I had it set to where it is at the upper alignment as opposed to center aligned for the scriptures, because it allows it to stay in that same line frame for you to actually manage it. Okay. And if you notice on my my OBS window, you'll see that my video is not completely widescreen. Okay. The reason for that is because my camera shoots in a couple of different aspect ratios. This is more like a 4:3 aspect ratio, I believe, which is like a old school TV, but this template still works for that. That's literally the idea behind it. It'll work for as wide as your screen is or as narrow, and it'll just settle in and be in that space for your scriptures. So this gives you an idea of what it looks like, how it works for you and for your ministry, and you would be controlling your scriptures, and they'll automatically adjust and change like you see here. And I can go through and change the scriptures, and you'll see that lower thirds there, all caps, the references there. And this all happens because what I did was I set up the option to split long verses as I display my scriptures from the scripture drawer. Now, when you make these into a show, that split long verses doesn't seem to apply. If I go right click here and I do convert to show, I don't think the split reference does anything. So I'm gonna turn that off, and then I'm gonna say convert to show. And if you notice, the verses are all there. Let's see, I'm gonna go through, let's go to the actual show. So yeah, verse 9 is just verse 9. It's all there. And so this is what'll end up happening. If you convert it to a show, it'll look something like this, to where it'll make it autofill. So it's not going to run out, but this is the longest verse in the Bible. So it literally shrinks it down to be a new size. And then when you have shorter verses, it'll do that. And this is what happens if you convert your scriptures into a show. They'll still all fit, but they will vary in size. So you'll see that this one, the text is bigger in, this is verse 12. You can see that the text is a little bit bigger. If I go back to verse 11, it's a lot smaller because it's set to shrink to fit based on the template. So when you're using this, understand how it works and make sure that when you're doing it, that it works the way you want it to for the way you're using your scriptures. Some of you like to go to the scripture drawer to pull up all your scriptures. With this template and this new update with the split long verses, I think I would like that as well, because it keeps the size of your verses consistent without you having to go into Freeshow and adjust and turn off the auto text size and all that kind of stuff to make it work. It'll work just fine from here, right? But when you copy that and convert it to a show, what ends up happening is it will shrink that stuff down if it's a longer version of the Bible, and it'll shrink it down to where it'll be something like that. All right, to where it'll put all the lines in there, the whole verse is there, but it did have to shrink down to do that. And I know a lot of you don't like that. So you would be reduced to making sure, I should say not reduced, but you just need to make sure you'll pull up your scriptures from the scripture drawer, turn on split long verses, and then you can actually manage and go through all your verses, and they'll be completely the same size like you see here. So these are all coming from the scripture drawer, and the text is not changing size. The scriptures are just shrunk down to stay the same. Okay, they're split, I should say, not shrunk, but they're split out to make sure they stay the same. All right, so that's just some tips on how to use this. Hopefully that helps you as you navigate, and enjoy the templates.